Jessica and welcome to Big Delicious Life. Today I'm going to show you how to make a really easy homemade sheet pan pizza. This is delicious. We're going to make the dough, we're going to make the sauce, and we're going to walk through how to make everything perfect. So first we're going to make the dough because that's something that you want to do earlier in the day, and it's really just a few simple ingredients. I'm going to use my stand mixer. If you don't have a stand mixer, you can definitely do this recipe by hand. It just takes a little bit of elbow grease. So what we have here is I have about 4 cups of bread flour. Now bread flour is going to give you that really awesome kind of crunchy, chewy texture that you want in a pizza dough. 1.5 cups of warm water. It's very important that your water is warm. 2 tablespoons of olive oil, a teaspoon of brown sugar, and 2 teaspoons of salt. And then I also have some yeast here, and I want to talk to you about this because this can get very confusing. I know sometimes working with yeast can be a little bit intimidating, but it's actually really easy. So there are 2 types of yeast that come in these little packets, and it's really important not to get them confused. One of them is instant yeast, and one of them is active dry yeast. This active dry yeast is what you would have to put in warm water and wait for it to come alive. That's not what we're going to use today. Today we're going to use instant yeast. And the instant yeast, you don't have to wait for it to come alive. You can just mix that right in with your dry ingredients, and you don't have to wait for it to foam in the water. So let's get started mixing up our ingredients. I'll just go ahead and dump this into my mixer. Get all of that in there. And then I'm going to add brown sugar. The brown sugar, I think, just gives it a really nice flavor. And then I've got 2 teaspoons of salt right here. This is Himalayan pink salt. And then our packet of instant yeast. Remember how we talked about the instant yeast? You can just dump in the bowl and add that to your dry ingredients. So I'm just going to go ahead and pour that in there. Okay, so we're just going to turn this on. Make sure that all of our dry ingredients are combined. And with our mixer going, we're just going to go ahead and add in our 1.5 cups warm water. Just gradually pour that in there. And our olive oil. Okay, so we've got our dough kneading in our stand mixer. I'm going to turn it off, and you can just get in here and see that it's turned into this nice ball. Like I said before, you can do this by hand by kneading it out on a floured surface, but I just like to use my stand mixer just to make it go a little bit faster. So what we're going to do now is we are going to get our dough into a bowl, and then we're going to cover it and let it rise in a warm place. So what you want to do is just put a little bit of olive oil in your bowl so your dough doesn't stick. That looks good. And then I'm just going to go in here, pull up my dough. Make sure I get all of that. And just kind of form it into a little ball. You don't need to handle it too much. The olive oil is going to help so it doesn't stick to your hands. And just put it right in the bowl. I'm going to then cover it. I really love to use these. You can cover it with plastic wrap. These are beeswax wraps. It's just cloth wrapped in beeswax, and it's reusable, so it's a little bit more eco-friendly. And I'm going to cover my bowl with this and put it in a warm place and let it hang out for about an hour until it doubles in size. So now we're going to make our sauce, and this is super easy, just a few simple ingredients. Right here I have a can of crushed tomatoes, some olive oil, some tomato paste, a little bit of salt and sugar, some minced garlic, and some oregano. That's it. This is about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, so I'm just gonna put that down in here and let that heat up. Okay, so while this olive oil is heating up, I'm gonna go ahead and just put our garlic in there. This is 2 cloves of garlic. And we're just gonna wanna stir this around until it gets fragrant. You don't wanna cook your garlic too much, but just until you can start to smell it. All right, so our garlic is looking ready. We're gonna go ahead and add in our crushed tomatoes. I want to do that slowly, otherwise that can really splash up in your face. I have here some brown sugar and some salt. I'm just going to put that right in there. Get that all in there, some oregano, throw that in. All right, so our pizza sauce is looking good. It's heating up in here. Now, I like a really kind of thick pizza sauce, and I like a lot of it on my pizza. This recipe, both the crust and the sauce is gonna make enough for 2 sheet pan pizzas. We're gonna make one tonight, but you can freeze this pizza sauce. And all we're going to do is make sure that this tomato paste is stirred in here. You can see in here our sauce is nice and thick. It smells so good. This is looking awesome. So once this is all stirred up, we're going to go ahead and put the top on. And we're just gonna let that simmer for 20 minutes or so. It's that easy. Okay, welcome back. It's been a few hours. We went out for our afternoon walk, and I have our dough here that's been rising. As you can see, it's gotten quite big. That's a little bit more than double in size, so this is looking awesome. This recipe is enough for 2 sheet pan pizzas. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna turn it out like this. This is looking awesome. And I'm gonna cut it in half. And then we're gonna put the other half in the refrigerator and use it to make another pizza later this week. This dough keeps well in the refrigerator for a while, so I would say, within the next 5 days. Nothing wrong with eating 2 pizzas within the next 5 days. So I'm gonna do first is just prepare the pan for us to slide the crust under there. So as you can see, I have a little bit of cornmeal right here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and dust. Just a light, you don't need a ton of it, but just a dusting, a nice little dust of cornmeal on this pan, and that's gonna help your crust from not sticking. So it's gonna act kind of like a little bed of sand. Gonna add just a little bit of texture to the bottom, and it's also gonna help make sure that our crust gets crispy. We are going to put this dough and work with it on an oiled surface. So I know some people do this with flour, but I like to use olive oil. You just need a tiny little bit, and you can spread it around, and then you just want to start flattening out your dough. I kind of like to thin it out this way. And you just want to stretch very gently and start to mold it in the shape of your sheet pan. This does not have to be perfect. This is a rustic pizza. And then when it starts to take on that rectangle shape, you can just flip it over. If you see it's getting a little bit too see-through in some places, you can just spread it out. Dough is very forgiving. You can just work with it. All right, so this is looking pretty good. I am gonna go ahead and put this into our pan, and I'm just gonna continue to work out the rest of that dough. So now that our crust is spread out in the pan, I'm just gonna go ahead and poke it a little bit with a fork, just kind of randomly. It's gonna bubble up a little bit in the oven, so this is just gonna make sure that we don't get too much puff in any one spot. So this is the trick to getting that crispy crust on the bottom that we all like with our pizza. I'm gonna go ahead and bake the pizza crust first before I put the toppings on. So I have my oven preheated to 475 degrees. You wanna do this in a super hot oven, and I'm gonna put my pizza crust in there for about 10, maybe 12 minutes until it's almost done. Then I'll take it out and top. Okay, so our pizza crust is done, and all we're gonna do is just lift it right out of the baking sheet and transfer it over to this board where we're gonna put some toppings on it. So I'm gonna put this over here. So what I have here is some mozzarella, Parmesan, and some pepperoni, our sauce, and then I love to top my pizza with a little bit of arugula salad. So while we're melting the cheese in the oven, we'll mix up a quick little salad to put on the pizza. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do, I'm gonna grab a spoon here, is we're just gonna get a little bit of olive oil onto our crust, just like that. Okay, awesome, that looks good. And then we're gonna go ahead and put on our sauce. Now, I like a really saucy pizza, but you can put on however much sauce you want. So we're just going to get that on there. You want to leave a little bit of room at the end, just at the edges. This looks really good. Okay, so we've got our sauce on. I got some mozzarella cheese here, some Parmesan, and some pepperoni. So we're just gonna go ahead and sprinkle this on. So I kind of like to layer my pizza toppings on a little bit. So I put a first layer of mozzarella on there, get some pepperoni, just kind of get them on there. I like to go over it just a little bit. So you can just kind of see the pepperoni peeking through the cheese. That looks good. I'm gonna hit up the top with just a little bit of parm. I'm gonna put this aside, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna slide this pizza crust directly off of this cutting board right into the oven. Just crust directly on the oven rack, and we're just gonna cook it until the cheese melts. So you're gonna put your board straight up here next to the oven. Push it on in there, just like that. Perfect. So while our cheese is melting in the oven, we're gonna make just a quick little arugula salad that I love to put right on top of my pizza. It's pizza and a salad all in one bite. It's awesome. Okay, so we have some baby arugula. We're just going to take a little bit of olive oil. You don't need very much because we have plenty going on in that pizza, and this is just gonna add a little bit of freshness. And then you can use whatever kind of vinegar you like. I think I'm gonna go with some champagne vinegar tonight. You could use lemon juice, you could use balsamic. Any of those would work just fine. And just hit it up with just a splash. Just a tiny little splash, just to give it a little bit of flavor. And then I'm gonna toss this together. And when our pizza comes up, I'm just gonna top my slice of pizza with that delicious. Okay, awesome. So we've got our pizza out of the oven. The cheese is all melty. I am going to go ahead and cut myself a big old square of this crispy pizza. It's gonna be so good. So as you can see, our crust is perfectly crispy. Love it when my pizza stands up like that and doesn't flop over. And then I'm just gonna take a little bit of this arugula and put it right on top. This is gonna be awesome. This is my favorite way to eat pizza. It's like a pizza salad. I mean, does it really get any better than that? So you can hear that crunchy crust. It's gonna be so good. Top this with a little bit of arugula. Yeah. That's really good. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching Big Delicious Life. If you like this video, subscribe, hit this.